Hello, everybody, and welcome to another scintillating episode of the Chocolate Bros podcast. Look at this face, Brian. Do I look excited?
You look amazingly excited.
Let's do this thing.
Let's do this thing.
You are here with Adam. I'm Adam. And Brian.
I'm Brian.
Yes, he is. We're brothers.
Mhm.
We're the owners of Fortunato Chocolate. You can check us out at www.fortunatochocolate.com. We are located here in Issaquah, which is what, 15, 20 minutes east of Seattle?
That's correct. Depends on traffic, of course. It
Oh, yeah, good call.
might be more accurate to say like 9 miles.
9 miles. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for publicly correcting me in front of all of our viewers. I appreciate that. You could have just said yes, it was 15 or 20 minutes. All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree.
I could have done a lot of things.
Yeah. You can do a lot of things right now.
That's right.
One of them would be to let me finish the intro.
Proceed.
Thank you. Okay. If you're ever in the Issaquah area, we own 2 retail locations.
An area known to be about 9 miles east of Seattle, but I digress.
Yes,
Proceed.
you do. Yes, you do digress. If you're ever in the Issaquah area, especially on a Saturday morning, my brother Brian and I work the owner shift on Saturday mornings.
Yes.
We'd love to see you in person. Now, what we're doing on this show is reviewing other people's chocolate for 2 reasons. First reason, summer's. Thank you, Brian, for doing the number. Good thing there's only 2. We had 8 reasons: 9, 10, and 11. Just no, 2 reasons only. Give me the one, Brian. First reason.
Reason number 1.
It's summer. It's getting hot out. A lot of our business is online, and we can't really ship chocolate during the summer because it melts.
That's correct.
Reason number 2.
2.
There it is, bro. We are interested in knowing what other chocolates are out there on the market, just to kind of see where we stand. Keep
That's
our
correct.
fingers on the pulse of the market a little bit. Brian, you want to add anything?
I want to say thank you everybody who's watching. You can go to fortunatochocolate.com. Subscribe to this, like this. We're over here busting our behinds to give you this amazing content, this banter. And we'd love it if you hit subscribe. We'd love it if you hit like. Send us a message. Throw your good vibes into the ecosphere, whatever it takes.
That's fair.
To hook us up, people.
That's right. It took us
Yeah.
decades
That's right.
of diligent effort
To prepare for just this episode.
to
Oh no, we
fine-
didn't do
no,
any preparation.
to fine tune this banter.
That's right.
And I don't think it's too much to ask for a like.
I think a like
What's
is
40 years for a little click of the button?
par for the course.
I think it's
right?
par for the course. Yeah.
Yes.
So Brian, why don't you go ahead and show the bar we're going to be reviewing today?
Today, we are going to review the Alter Eco 85% Cacao Classic Blackout Bar. This is an organic dark chocolate. We're going straight up today, folks.
We're going for the hardcore
There's
dark
nothing
chocolate today.
There's nothing like complicated about this bar. I was about to say nothing fancy, but it might taste fancy. But what this is a basic high percentage cacao-based chocolate bar. This
Yeah.
should be now. Let's talk about Alter Eco a little bit. This is a Swiss company. Well, I'm sorry, it's made in Switzerland.
It looks like it says they're based out of San Francisco.
I think it's distributed out of San Francisco in the
It
United
says
States.
the company is in it's over
It's
here.
distributed by Alter Eco Foods in San Francisco. It's made in Switzerland. I actually believe the corporate parent of these to be Swiss, but I'm not saying that's true. I may not be. I may or may not
That's
be.
what your recollection is?
Correct. Yes. So I have a little bit of knowledge of Alter Eco. This knowledge is maybe not as up to date as it should be, but I know that at one point Alter Eco was buying a lot of fair trade organic CCN 51, a very kind of common sort of bulk cacao that grows in South America.
Industrial hybrid, bred for yield.
That's right,
and
bred for
disease
yield and
resistance.
disease resistance rather than flavor. They were buying a lot. They might have been the #1 exporter out of Peru, or buyer from beans that got exported out of Peru, of CCN 51 beans from the relatively northern part of the cacao growing band in Peru, which is San Martin, near the city of Tarapoto.
And that's a big industrial plantation style
Out
cacao
there,
producing
that's
region.
right. Out there they have, it's not so much plantation style because
No.
it is still
Oh,
relatively
small farms.
smallholder,
Okay.
but there are huge cooperatives out there, Acopagro, Sol de Oro, Oro Verde, and they were known to, I believe that, I can't remember the name of their trading company, but Alter Eco had a trading company in Peru that bought thousands and thousands of tons of CCN 51 every year and exported it and made Alter Eco bars.
Okay.
And so
And let me
they,
say,
at that time, they were mostly for the European market. I believe that they have since formed a U.S. Subsidiary, which is Alter Eco Foods out of San Francisco, and are now into the U.S. market. All of that is my recollection and best guess. I may be wrong.
and I will say this: the reason I bought this bar too, I got it at a local sort of health food store. It's we have PCCs here, but I've also seen them in San Diego at Stumps. So this is it's a widely distributed bar. I don't recall if I've seen them at more of like the mainstream shopping, grocery
I also
stores.
don't recall. Yeah.
But I know that I've seen them widely distributed in what we kind of consider like a slightly higher end health food stores.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big company with wide
Right.
distribution.
Now, there's a couple interesting things on the back of this, and I'll just call them out real quick. One is, well, so this is organic, as you would expect, recyclable packaging, as you would expect. The ingredients list is impeccable: organic cacao beans, organic cocoa butter, organic raw cane sugar, and organic vanilla.
So given that there's no funny business there, it's going to depend on how good
That's
the
right.
ingredients
This
taste.
is all going to come down
There's no
to
tricks here.
the genetic quality of the beans, the ferment and drying of the beans,
The
the
roast.
roast, and the conch, and how well it's tempered, which can also be affected by things that they can't control after the factory. The interesting thing that I found here, it says now normally when you get fair trade certified, you get fair trade certified by Fair Trade International. This says Fair for Life Fair Trade certified.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that maybe because you think it might be a European company. Maybe that's some kind of a European.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen this banner before. It says Fair for Life Fair Trade, and you can see it just right down here. It says Fair for Life. And that, I believe, may be a different or new, or maybe it may be their in-house fair trade certification. I'm not familiar with that fair trade certification.
Why don't you read the greenest chocolate piece there?
Okay, it says the cleanest, greenest chocolate. This chocolate bar is made of organic, clean ingredients. No fake sugars or additives. That appears to be true. And its carbon neutral supply chain restores forests. And I was about to comment that it has another little marker down here which says climate neutral. So they're making, look, I don't know. I can't vouch for the veracity, for the truth of the claims they're making, but they're paying attention to the eco value of this, to making sure that farmers are properly compensated. It's organic, to recyclable packaging. Yep. All admirable.
All admirable.
This could be greenwashing, but it also doesn't necessarily have to be greenwashing. I hope it's not.
But even if it's greenwashing, even if it's not all the way truthful, at least it's in the right direction, and it would seem to indicate that it's a company who cares about what they're doing and has a mission that they're trying to pursue.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is all
That's
good.
right.
So I'm rooting for these guys. I hope the chocolate tastes good.
Absolutely. Now there's more information on the inside of the package. They're talking about agroforestry on the inside of the package, farm like a forest. They're talking about multi-cropping.
And that's right up our alley because that's the type of, those are the kinds of farms we buy from as
regenerative agriculture. Yep. So this is great to hear. This is great to hear. I hope that this is all real and that they're not greenwashing their product with this.
And also I hope the product tastes good.
Yeah.
Because ultimately a story has no flavor, Brian. Boom! Did a grenade just go off in your brain?
You just blew mine.
Stories don't have flavor, Brian.
That's right.
So I hope this tastes good, and that way you could buy something that you feel good about, that has a nice story, and then also the experience of enjoying the chocolate lives up to the story, which would be nice.
I'm pulling for Alter Ego. Yeah. Okay, so inside a kind of, you can tell it's that recyclable type of cardboard. It's got the thin foil wrap, which we've commented on various times before. We don't love because you can't really reseal it.
It's hard to reseal.
That's right. So we don't love that, but hey,
what are you gonna do?
They're doing other good things. So let's take a sniff. I like the smell.
I like the smell.
That smells like some good solid chocolate to me.
It smells like a nice roast. You're not getting any weird under fermentation.
I don't feel an excessive cocoa butter on my hands. They don't call out percentages, but
I like the look. I like the snap.
Yeah, it's a thin, very simple mold. Nothing. I think it says something. It says Alter Ego. It's a matte mold. I think you can kind of see that. It's a matte, very thin mold that just says Alter Ego. Let's get into this.
You can set it off, or I can set it off, Brian.
Because it's a high percentage, and it's got lower cocoa butter, it takes a little while to melt, which proves the point we were saying. It's not super high in cocoa butter.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead. You want me to set it off, or you want to go first?
You go ahead.
Oh, it looks like you have thoughts.
I don't think these are Peruvian beans. I think these are Ecuadorian beans.
I agree.
I think these beans come from Ecuador.
Or it could be a blend.
But I think this is CCN 51.
But maybe it's a CCN1, sort of Arriba Nacional blend, because it does feel like it has some of those Ecuadorian notes. But the reason why it would lend itself to I would agree with the opinion about the CCN 51, the front. So let me just say this. This is good. This is good. For an 85, we make an 84%. Our 84% is delicious, and flavorful.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I think it's a blend of CCN 51 and
Mm-hmm.
maybe some Ariba Nacional, to me on the front, it has some of those Ariba Nacional notes, which is sort of the nutty note that
And
we,
what would, well, nutty maybe,
that sort of nutty. I don't
but
mean,
there's a little bit of fruit acid in there, a little
but
bit.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of, I forget which bar it was, but we tasted a bar that said it was made with Ariba Nacional.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the front has that same similar nutty
Okay.
flavor profile.
Yeah.
The Nacional that we use, the
Mm-hmm.
pure genetically verified Nacional, tends towards more fruit acids and floral.
Yeah.
Whereas I've noticed that the Ecuadorian cacao has more of a nutty.
Mm-hmm.
But this starts to me with some of that nutty Ariba Ecuadorian flavor,
Mm-hmm.
but then very quickly goes into just sort of a not even a generic chocolate cacao flavor,
A base.
but just basically a very bland,
Yeah.
just sort of a very bland,
Mm-hmm.
not offensive because it seems like the processing is good.
Mm-hmm.
And they have used some cocoa butter, not a lot, but enough to just sort of make it very mild
Mm-hmm.
and an almost flavorless middle to me.
Yeah.
I just don't get very much character at all. But on the other hand, it's not offensive. And if you're trying, now you give your opinion in a second.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to go for a high percentage cacao chocolate
Right.
for health benefits,
Mm-hmm.
then I think this is a pretty good option, especially in light of all of the other environmental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, this is not a highly flavorful chocolate that like knocks off your socks with how delicious it is.
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So, it's got good aroma. It's got good snap.
Mm-hmm.
I think the beans are well fermented. I don't detect any problems with fermentation. I agree with you. When you hit it, there's a solid burst of upfront flavor.
Mm-hmm. And you think it's going to be?
Yeah,
it's going to continue.
That flavor declines. Here's the issue that I have with this bar. What remains is what the tail on this is a vinegary kind of acetic acid, and that implies to me that they're getting a good ferment on their beans. They're not over roasting or conching it, but there's a lot of that acetic acid stays in there because I don't think that they have a pre-dry to allow the acetic acid. And I think that with these beans, I think they're caught. They're caught. They have to make a decision. They can over roast and conch to get rid of some of that acetic acid, those volatile compounds, or they can leave that tail in there and maintain those flavor notes that are fairly limited that they have. And by using the beans that I think they're using, I suspect they're using, I think they put themselves, if they had, I believe that they're taking these beans straight out of the fermenter box and putting them under the sun, which dries the outer shell, the outer skin of the bean, and traps that acetic acid in the bean. And that's why there's a little bit of a vinegary afternote. But let me talk about the positive. You're right. These beans have some character.
At the front.
These beans have some character at the front. There's nothing obviously wrong with the ferment. There's no rubber or off or slaty or like problems with fermentation or under fermentation. No moldiness. No off aromas. It's pleasing. It's lower in cocoa butter, and I think they made a decision not to add a bunch of additional cocoa butter. That speaks to Ecuadorian beans to me. I could be wrong.
And let me ask you.
I don't know this. I'm guessing.
No, yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If you compared this to something like that Taza 85% bar that we tasted that has the stone ground texture, which one of these bars would you go with between the Taza 85% or if you had to choose an Alter Eco 85%?
I would go with the Taza.
You'd go with the Taza?
I believe the beans had more character, and I believe that there was no sort of vinegary, no acetic acid sort of lingering taste. What stayed with me on the Taza.
Yeah, and as we're talking and as this goes on, you do perceive more and more of the tail that you're talking about. It really stays with you.
So I want to say that I believe that the beans that the Taza bar used were superior to
the
these
Mexican,
beans.
probably Mexican Belizean beans
Yes,
versus Ecuadorian, Peruvian beans.
And
probably.
I think they may have that's a smaller company, and I think they're getting smaller batches of beans, and I believe that they may have an intermediate step between fermenting and drying that allows some of that vinegar to come out, and that allows you.
Did you see that when you visited Maya Mountain Cacao?
When I visited Maya Mountain, I'm just trying to remember if I saw a pre-dry. I mean, I didn't see
You don't remember
their whole process. I can't say one way or the other.
All right, keep going. Sorry.
So I would choose the Taza because I think their beans had a little more character, and I think they had an extra step in their post-harvest processing, which is really advantageous to any bean. This bar, I'm going to say, for an 85% bar, it's not bad. It's not great. There's nothing obviously wrong with it. I think they seem like they're legitimately doing what they can to address environmental issues, to address social issues, and to make a solid high percentage product from beans that are, on the lower end of character, on the lower end of genetic specialty type
Hmm.
beans of the heirloom scale. I think overall it's a solid effort.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a bad chocolate, but I think that and by the way, it's time consuming and expensive to do a
Yeah,
pre-dry and
yeah,
get that
yeah.
vinegar
Well,
out of there.
especially at scale.
Honestly, if it was
Especially
me,
at scale.
in the choice that they made, I think I would go a slightly different direction. I would conch this a little more. I think the roast is fine. I would conch this another hour or two and get a little bit more of that vinegariness out. It might be a little bit milder on the front end, which is not great for this because it's a mild bar already. But I think, you only get one chance to make a first impression, but the impression that stays with you is that
Yeah.
long tail. And this has a long
It
kind of
does.
acetic acid tail on it, which
And honestly,
colors your review.
when I asked you the question,
Yeah.
would you prefer the Taza bar or
Mhm.
this bar? I was actually leaning more towards this bar
Mhm.
because I find the Taza bar to be a really good bar. We
Mhm.
gave it a high review,
It was
but
a little more, maybe one note on the
but
front
I
end.
think that cacao has a lot less character than the front of this.
Mhm.
And then also, I prefer this smoother sort of Swiss style processing
Right.
to the
Right.
stone ground, and
Right.
that just that's a
Mhm.
personal preference. I like the smoother. Um, but as this tail wears on, I
Mhm.
don't think that I would like to be walking around with this long sort of
Yeah.
acetic
The
tail
the
that it
problem is
has.
that
Yeah,
yeah.
as we talk, and
Yes.
it's just lingering there, and I haven't had any
It's
water.
a very strong.
It is.
It's a long, strong tail, and it's not the best part
So
of the
basically, what you
tasting
have is
experience.
up front, you bite in, you go, oh, this is interesting,
Yeah.
and then you come into this sort of very mild, characterless
Yeah.
middle, which is, it's not offensive one way or the other, and then
Mhm.
it ends in this long tail
Yeah.
that is sort of very displeasing.
I agree.
And so you've got this, it's the opposite of what you want. You want to start slow and finish strong.
Yes.
Here we're starting strong, we're finishing
Yeah,
poorly.
this bar led Taza after the first quarter.
Uh-huh.
I think
Yeah.
at halftime Taza was like 2
Yeah.
points down,
Yeah.
and then Taza like pulls away because I remember the tail on that Taza being a wonderful roasty,
Yeah.
nutty,
Yeah.
deep
Yep.
chocolate with nothing offensive. And the
The
tail
tail kind of messes it up.
So I think this is an admirable effort, and there's many things to admire about what they've done here, but I think they're missing something in their post-harvest processing or possibly their conch that could take this up to a next level.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Even so, if you're at a health food
I
store,
would not be disappointed.
if you're looking
though, yeah.
if you're looking for an 85%, and this is like maybe the only 85% there, it's still it's good. I mean, it's good.
I'd be interested to try something a little lower percentage from Alter
Okay,
Eco.
that's what we can do.
I think that, or I don't know if they do inclusions, but I wouldn't mind trying something a little lower. I think that the addition of a little more. By the way, I also don't know if the cocoa butter that they add
That's a
is
good point. Fair point.
deodorized.
Fair point.
We also might be getting flavor. The flavor is actually quite reminiscent too of non-deodorized cocoa butter.
Yeah.
So it might be that as well. It might be an ingredient issue. I'd like to try something a little lower end. If it had even more of this, we could conclude that it was the cocoa butter. If it had less of it, we could conclude that the beans that that the less cocoa mass it had, that it was in fact the vinegar note from the beans.
All right. Well, we'll be back probably with another Alter Eco review. We're getting close to the time limit that we have, so
Yes.
we're gonna have to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everybody. Consider subscribing. 40 years. I'm 41.
I'm 55.
We've been developing this banter for 41 years.
That's right.
So,
I even pre-gamed my banter
pre-gamed
before
it,
you were
14,
born.
yeah.
So yeah.
So consider subscribing.
Mhm.
We've put several decades of work into the banter.
That's right.
Check us out at www. Go ahead, Brian.
It's the least you could
It's
do.
the least you
I
could
mean,
do.
right.
Yeah, www.fortunatochocolate.com. We have an 84% bar. Feel free to read some of the reviews of that bar and even taste test it against some of these other chocolates that we're talking
idea.
about when the weather
idea.
cools down. And we thank you very much for your time, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now you got to watch me move the bar
Thank you
and
again.
finish the broadcast.